Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Welcome back to the Hope Natural Health podcast, where I try to get you healthy the right way. Thank you for bearing with us the last few weeks as we replayed some of our favorite episodes, and I'm super excited to kick off some new episodes with a special guest today, Alison Bladh. She is coming from us from Sweden, and I'm super excited to have her here today. She is a registered nutritional therapist and beauty therapist that after falling for the charms of a Viking man, she now resides in Sweden. She has worked in the health and wellness industry over 30 years, specializing in menopausal women's health, and she now runs her own online clinic, helping women worldwide manage the negative symptoms of menopause. Her mission is to support her clients with changes to diet, health, and lifestyle so they can harness their hormones and get the confidence and sparkle back. She believes that all women, no matter what age, deserve to reclaim their health and feel great. Life is too short to suffer symptoms that hold you back, and every woman has the right to feel and look amazing in midlife. This is so awesome because she's talking about midlife, and I focus mainly on, I guess, but menstrual cycle life. So this is awesome to have someone on the show that can really help women understand that they don't have to dread the next phase in their life. So welcome to the show, Alison.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So we're just going to dive in. I know I introduced you, but let's talk a little bit more about how you really got into this, and did you always start off with specializing in menopausal women's health, or tell me a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, my journey started actually as a teenager. When I was growing up, going through puberty, I developed very bad skin. So I developed acne. And I was very interested to understand why this was happening. And it was hormonal based. I realized that. So I really I didn't want to take medication. So I started looking at food and lifestyle and what I could do to improve my skin, which I managed to do. And my skin improved. But that's really what set me off on this interest for hormones and women's health and everything to do with, what you can do from the inside to really boost your health. So, because in the beginning, when I started working, I worked as an esthetician, specifically working with women in midlife that had skin problems, because as we go into perimenopause and menopause, we can all of a sudden, for example, develop acne or pigmentation or have really, really sensitive issues with the skin. However, I very soon came to realize that you need to work from the inside. I was working with aesthetical treatments and products on the outside, but you needed that inside piece. And that's when I went back to university and studied nutritional science and became a nutritional therapist. And ever since then, I've been working specifically with that group of women, 45 plus, that are going through perimenopause and menopause. And I think also as I was growing up, I saw, my mother and the women within my family, my grandmother, really kind of suffering through this time in their lives. And it wasn't spoke about. It was more kind of brush it under the carpet. Let's, just stiff up a lip and get on with it. And I could never understand why they didn't get the help and the support that they needed. So I've kind of made it my mission to get rid of the stigma attached to menopause.
Oh, yeah. And there is. And so many women dread it. And it's not talked about a lot. And it's actually what I like to call like the second puberty. And it's actually a really beautiful process, just like your menstrual cycle when you are, bleeding and going through those years. So let's talk a little bit about menopause, and can you talk a little bit about the different stages of menopause?
Yes, there are three different stages, and I'm always surprised, the clients that I work with and women in general, even though we think that we understand, we really don't understand the different stages. I mean, there's some people don't really understand what perimenopause is. Mm-hmm. So the three stages are, you've got perimenopause, which is the first stage, you then have menopause, and then we have what we call postmenopause. Perimenopause on average starts around the age of 45. That can vary. We're all very different, but on average it's 45. Mm-hmm. And this is where our hormones start to fluctuate. I mean, you're still menstruating, you're still fertile, but they're all over the place. It's a bit like a roller coaster. And this in turn can, this is when you can start noticing that the classic menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, weight gain around the middle area, mood swings, brain fog, all those things just start creeping up on you as your hormones become imbalanced. So this is the perimenopausal stage. On average, this lasts to the age of 51, but again, that really varies totally. It's very individual. And then we go into what we call menopause. So what menopause actually is when you haven't had a menstruation for a year. So if you haven't had a menstruation for a year, you can then actually say that you are in menopause. But if you're in perimenopause and haven't had a period for example, 8 months, and then you get a period, you're still in perimenopause. You've got to have that year of no menstruation. Mm-hmm. And then after menopause, you're in what we call postmenopause. And postmenopause is the stage that you will stay in for the rest of your life. We're living so much longer now. It could be another 30 years. Mm-hmm. And you're not... You don't ovulate anymore, you don't have any periods, and then you're not fertile anymore. Your body produces a very small amount of estrogen and progesterone, but you're not, you're not producing that from your ovaries anymore.
Yeah, your adrenal glands take over a little bit when we hit post-menopause, and our ovaries are just like, peace, I'm done. Not producing anymore. How do you explain this to women that had a partial hysterectomy or say an ablation and they're really not bleeding anymore? I do it by clinical labs, but I'm curious how you kind of approached the 3 phases with someone that doesn't have a menstrual cycle, whether they've had a hysterectomy or an ablation.
Yeah, I think that going in, if you go into menopause due to an operation, hysterectomy, or due to other reasons, if you've had illnesses like a lot of cancer treatments can make you go into menopause earlier. And then there is premature menopause that you can develop that isn't related to surgery or medication. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not a doctor. So, that piece, if I had a client that was going through an early menopause for medication or surgery reasons, then I would work alongside their doctor, with the nutrition and the lifestyle piece, because they might need hormone replacement therapy if they're much younger. So, that is the bit that I would really hand over to a doctor. But there's a lot that you can do to really boost your health with nutrition, but you need to get all the pieces in place, really. And for your overall health, if you're much younger when you go into menopause, you maybe would need some sort of hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that you kind of touched on our next topic, which is how nutrition plays a role during this How does nutrition play a role in this transition? That was a lot of ishin.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually with nutrition and how, in general, how important good nutrition is for our overall health. But when you come into perimenopause, it's really a time in a woman's life where we just have to take a little bit extra care of ourselves, and having a diet and really, focusing on eating foods that are going to benefit you. And there's research being done, for example, on hot flashes that, if you reduce highly processed sugary foods, then you may have less hot flushes. There's definitely some sort of correlation between, sugary foods, processed foods, and the amount of menopausal symptoms that you get. So, eating proper food, good nutritious food, rather than food that you maybe look at and it's totally highly refined and packaged, that it doesn't really do us any favors. It's lacking in nutritional value. And also thinking of nutrition for as menopause, we have to really think about our bone health, our heart health, our brain health and our gut health, because estrogen is such a key hormone. It's really like what we call a mother hormone, and it's so important for virtually every bodily system. And bone health in particular, as we get older as women, we lose bone density. So making sure that you eat calcium rich foods that are rich in vitamin D, vitamin K, and magnesium. We need all these things to really keep our bones strong. So what I'd like to say is that eating what we call a Mediterranean style diet is a very good starting point, because it's full of lots of fruit, vegetables, poultry, fish, all the wonderful healthy fats that we need, like avocado, nuts and seeds, olive oil. Really having a Mediterranean style diet is a really good starting point for menopausal ladies.
Awesome. Can you speak a little bit more on the sugar related to hot flashes? And I think I know the answer, but for the viewers, like why women, it's the same thing in menstruating women. When we hit our menstrual cycle, like estrogen declines and we tend to want the crap foods because we don't have the insulin. But it's kind of the same thing in menopause, because estrogen is kind of depleted. Well, not kind of, it is starting to be depleted. So can you talk a little bit more about that and why it's so important to, I guess, understand that so that you can help your hormones?
Yes. Sugar and processed refined foods are, they're detrimental to health. And as we go into perimenopause, again, estrogen is needed for what we call insulin sensitivity. And without that sensitivity, your cells don't react to insulin in the same way, and it basically increases our blood sugar levels. And estrogen is needed for really keeping our blood sugar levels in balance during this phase. We see in a lot of perimenopause and menopausal women that the incidence of insulin resistance goes up, which in turn, if not looked at and treated, then that can or may lead to diabetes too. So what happens when we eat sugar is that we release insulin. And when I say sugar, we're talking about, the refined sugars like white bread, bagels, pasta, that basically shoot your blood sugar up immediately because they're very quickly digested. And what happens when our blood sugar rises, your body doesn't like that, doesn't want high blood sugar. So it releases insulin, which is like the key that opens the cell up. And this allows the insulin and allows the sugar to go into the cell and to be utilized as energy. But when we eat all these processed foods, you get into this like roller coaster. 1 minute you've got high blood sugar, the next minute it dips. So it's up and down. And this causes anxiety, it causes cravings. When your blood sugar is low, you can have cravings for sweet, sugary foods. And it also increases the frequency of hot flushes. So blood sugar balance is key. There's many other aspects to it as well, regarding weight gain, etc. But it's really key in keeping that balance to reduce the number of menopausal symptoms that we get.
Oh, yeah. And I'm actually recording a podcast coming up about stubborn belly fat. And I talk exactly about insulin resistance, and especially in the menopausal years, because we don't have estrogen to help balance that. I just thought of something, and it wasn't on our notes, but do you have any nutritional recommendations for Another common symptom I hear, well, there's two, and I just want to touch on one. Well, we might get to the other one, but waking up and feeling like you're 80 all of a sudden. You have like the achy bones, your joints hurt. You just feel terrible, really, because you just hurt all over. Can you touch a little bit upon that and maybe some tips that you can use? I do hormones, but for someone that can't do hormones or doesn't have that, available to them, do you have any tips on that symptom?
Yeah, that's quite common, isn't it? I hear that a lot with my clients as well, that you just start getting all these aches and pains that you never had before. One thing that I would focus on nutritionally with that is anti-inflammatory diet. So really getting rid of the foods that cause inflammation in the body, because those pains in the joints can be down to inflammation. And again, estrogen, has an anti-inflammatory effect on the body. So as our levels decline, it really can start causing joint pains, etc. So focusing on anti-inflammatory foods, again, getting rid of all the processed refined foods, lots of wonderful vegetables and fruits that really give us all the nutrients that we need. And another key thing for joint health is fats, your essential fatty acids, your omega-3 fatty acids really help to kind of keep things lubricated. So they're the key things, and hydration as well, drinking plenty of water.
I've said it a million times. We need fats, and we have a stigma around fats and how we think that if we eat fats, we're just going to get fat. And that's not the case. Like, we need these good, healthy fats, not the ones that come from like fried foods and crap fats, but the essential fatty acids, the nuts, the seeds, the avocados, sardines, salmon, if you don't like fish, you're not going to like those. But there's supplements you can take to help, really lubricate those cells. I talk about omega-3 fatty acids probably daily with my patients, and most people are deficient. It's because it's not part of our standard American diet. Our standard American diet is very rich in the omega-6s, which actually will contribute to inflammation, which is exactly what you just said. So super good tips there. The next topic I want to talk about is mindset and how this plays a role in transition, because I know, like we kind of talked about earlier, a lot of women just dread this, and they're like, oh, they're terrified of menopause and, the changes and feeling like crap and gaining weight and hot flashes and not sleeping. So can you touch a little bit about how you help women with the mindset transition?
Yeah, I think what we have to remember with menopause is that it is a totally natural process. It's not a disease. This is something that will happen to every single woman.
Right.
It's a totally natural process. And what I try to help women with is to embrace this time in their lives with positivity. Because I think it's fascinating how, and this has been shown in research, that, if you embrace something with positivity and you're not negative about it, then the experience of it will be much better. And this is, again, very interesting that in different parts of the world where the older woman that's gone through menopause or going through menopause is looked up to, in the village, she's sort of the older, the wiser person and very highly respected. These women don't hardly get any menopausal symptoms, because in the Western world, we tend to look at menopause as, like you were saying, that this terrible time in a woman's life, and it's all awful, and you're going to be experiencing all these horrible symptoms. Whereas when it's looked upon as a transition that is very positive, and these women are so wise, and they're leading the villages, they don't get as many menopausal symptoms, if any at all. So it really does work if you go into this with a positive attitude. And really, I like to say to people, it's just take one step at a time, and get the support that you need, because you really don't have to suffer.
No, and that's exactly what, I teach women every day and kind of put out there in the social media webs. It's like, you don't have to suffer through anything. Like, there's help with your symptoms. Like, your symptoms are messages, and they're telling you, hey, let's like try and figure out why I have this. And with menopause, I mean, there's support. There's, a lot of negative talk around hormone replacement therapy, but it's game changing for women. And if it's done safe and correctly and being, managed and observed and really tracked and tested by a doctor, then there's more benefits than there are risks, and you don't have to suffer. And then if you don't want to do hormones, there's tons of alternative therapies like herbs and vitamins, lifestyle, diet, things like that can help support your symptoms, outside of doing the hormones. So very, very important to know that you don't have to suffer. And yeah, it's a beautiful process. So I really appreciate what you do and how you help women, understand that so that they don't have to suffer through that. Is there anything else that sparked your interest that you want to mention before we wrap things up?
There's such a wide topic,
I know, right?
Isn't it? So many different things. No, I think we've really said everything that one other huge point that I always talk to people about is stress management during this time period, and because that has such a detrimental effect on health.
Yep.
And in this time period where your estrogen levels are low, it just cascades, and becomes very, very negative. So learning some stress management techniques is really crucial.
Oh, yeah. And it has an influence on insulin, which therefore can create more belly fat, creates more inflammation, more hot flashes. Like, stress is really, it's honestly like, oftentimes is the underlying cause of a lot of symptoms. So everyone has stress. We just need to learn how to manage stress and how we have, and the way you manage stress is completely different than how I might manage stress. And so it's trying to find things that work for you just to kind of release the day-to-day things, because life is hard. It's not going to get any easier. We're going to be thrown curveballs left and right. So we just have to learn how to deal with it and move on, because it really does affect our hormones, and especially if we don't have any hormones. So, Alison, it's been so nice having you here today. I'm going to end with one final question that I ask all my podcast guests. What is your favorite or best health tip that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say to eat whole foods in balance. If you don't know or understand what the ingredients are on the back of a package, don't eat it. Eat whole foods in balance, so protein, fat, and carbohydrates from vegetables with every meal.
Wonderful. That's literally what I preach every day to women too. It's interesting, because if you're like, oh, I eat that, like, really look at your food when you eat your lunch or your breakfast or your dinner today and be like, do I have protein here? Do I have a good healthy fat? What about vegetables? And I bet you'd be surprised that some meals are not as balanced as others. And that's definitely affecting your hormones, your mood, your sleep, everything. So awesome tip. And again, thank you so much for being here today, Alison. She has a resource page for free downloads, and she's offering a free discovery call with her. So all of her information will be linked in the show notes, so you can contact her. And I really appreciate, again, for you taking the time to be here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, thank you all for joining today. And we would love if you learned anything from this podcast to share it with the world. And we will see you all next week.